Oh, where's my other video? Brisket ready for the smoker. Ooh. I want to smoke a brisket. Oh, that sounds so good. Brisket. Took me 2 times to get my brisket right. 2 times. Yup. Yeah. Where is Trump's approval rating, right? So there it is. Interesting study. I don't know that I'd 100% buy what they're selling, but interesting study on Americans' views on free versus fair trade over the years. Okay? Very interesting. Maybe if we have time, we'll go over it. I do want to get to a lot of questions today and try to answer as many as I can. All right. So with that in mind, let's get started. You're watching Inside the Numbers with the People's Pundit. I'm your host, Rich Barris, the People's Pundit. Thanks for watching. Thanks for following. If you like the videos, don't forget to like them and share them far and wide. Share them far and wide. All right. Little thing on the agenda here today, real quick, because it is going to be burning on through. I don't know how much time we're going to get. Don't forget, in case you didn't watch Monday or Wednesday's shows, this is the last day to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and repeat it, even though I'm not obliged to do it. I'm going to. If you did already, great and good for you. But if you have not, of course, I'm talking about the prize that you can win over at 1775. I mean, seriously, let me just get this going. Imagine winning over 100K just for drinking a cup of coffee. A brand new Cybertruck, $30,000 in cash. This is the last week, Easter Sunday's week. It ends April 20th. All right. They are, get it, fueling a giveaway. Every dollar you spend equals an entry. There's no hoops and no selling your data to some tech giant, just a small batch, single origin coffee that's roasted weekly and proudly supports free speech, independent media, and your freedom. So we'd like to support them back. And by the way, they also happen to be very good coffee. It's the official coffee of free thinkers, hard workers, and the Rumble crowd that doesn't cave to the narrative. If Rumble is the platform for uncensored truth, 1775 is the coffee that keeps it moving. So it's 1775.com. The link is in the description. Use the promo code TPP for the People's Pundit to save yourself 15% off and enter that giveaway before it ends. I'll try to remind you again before the end of the show, but you know how bad I am at this stuff. That's why I'm front loading it right now. So again, 1775coffee.com. Use the promo code TPP. It's 100K plus in prizes. Someone's walking away with it. There's 1 week left. Not even. There's 2 days left. Excuse me. And in truth, you know it could be you. Especially since we've done in the past these giveaways before. And we mention who wins. All right. So free silver is one of them. And it was monthly for a while. So that's really, really cool. All right. So. Since we are going to be doing a public polling project here soon, as I hope, which you should support, it's in the link below. The link is below. Share it. Which I'm going to try to do some stuff on my end here to get it funded too and done too. There has been some polls out by various organizations, including one I absolutely have zero respect for now, and I think you guys know that. All right, but there is one tracking poll left in the United States of America, of course, and that is Mark Mitchell over at Rasmussen Reports. All right, so I'm curious whether, what we find as well. I wouldn't be surprised if we found Trump a little bit here, a little bit there. It's like, where is his approval? It gets very difficult to measure during his presidency. And I know this from polling his first presidency and polling it correctly. All right. It's tough because some things can happen. His support plays peekaboo a little bit. All right. Is it so much that it justifies or explains, not justifies, explains the results of other pollsters? No. For the most part, no. But it can explain or help to explain why a pollster who's generally right winds up getting it a little off. I'm not talking about 6 points off. I'm not talking about 8 points off. You know how we are over here. We like to hold ourselves to a very high standard. So in North Carolina, if we get Trump 51, Harris 47, it's not like a huge thing that it was Trump 51, Harris 47. We want to be that accurate. Now, we don't expect you to expect that level of accuracy out of any pollster. You shouldn't, but we kind of do expect it out of ourselves. All right. And I'll beat myself up over the 0.4 of a percentage point that I may have missed because it went into a third party vote because the panel was too third party or something. Right. So, but that's not what I'm talking about here. One is, as you guys know, I've told you already, one is just an information op. All right. It's their way. It's like the Nate Silver's way and the rest of those election mafia scumbags. It's their way of countering people like us who are more accurate than they are, right? When their high quality doesn't work. I can simply say you can take your high quality and stick it because we should be talking about accuracy, and there's high accuracy and low accuracy rates. And that's all that matters, not your stupid opinion on what is and what isn't the appropriate gold standard of our time, right? So there's been these like falsely propped up polling firms that did nothing but mirror and herd the People's Pundit and then pretended as if they did that work on their own when they clearly didn't. And everyone who knows how to poll can look at the work and see it's very obvious that they're often, by the way, using and recycling the same data set and simply changing the weights and then mirroring to other people's results. They're like, oh, this guy and a couple others, we know they're going to be more accurate. So let's mirror them and be a little bit more Harris than they are. All right, that's why they missed Florida by 7, 8, 9 points. That's why they thought until the very end when they switched it at the last second, inexplicably, that Harris was going to carry North Carolina. The guy seriously made an argument on a podcast that the response to the hurricane was in Western North Carolina was going to cost Trump North Carolina. He also entertained the concept of reverse coattails when there is absolutely zero empirical evidence on the academic record to suggest that there is such a thing as reverse coattails. There is not. It doesn't exist. It exists in the minds of pundits who speak on television. It doesn't exist in the literature or the academic research at all. At all. Zero. And that is because gubernatorial elections are local focused elections. Presidential elections are not. They are nationally focused elections, and they also elicit a more partisan voting index or a more partisan loyalty among the voters when they vote. At the gubernatorial level, that partisan loyalty does not exist. Not at that level. All right. So we're left to kind of figure out, well, who the hell are we supposed to believe? And that's why I ran over the tranches with you guys all the time, which I'd like to quickly bring up again before we show you the latest from Rasmussen, and we'll listen to a clip from somebody talking about what they see, right? Because it's weird. Somehow you can gauge the polarization of certain groups, but you can't, or not even the polarization. Somehow you can gauge the isolation of certain Democratic groups, but you can't get Trump's approval, correct? That doesn't seem right, does it? If certain groups, which are the ones that have the strongest disapproval feelings toward him, if certain groups are isolated in their thinking, then does it make any sense that everybody would share their opinion on Trump's handling of his presidency? It does not. It doesn't. All right, real quick, though, we're going to talk about it again one more time. All right. A bearish tranche, for those who don't know, right, is when you see, and think of these as tranche. If you're a financial guy, you'll understand what I'm saying. Think of these as tranches. Polls are put into tranches, batches. All right. And there are different batches, there are different categories. This is one called the bearish tranche. It publishes results that are favorable often to a certain candidate or party or whatever that is the consensus, but often those results are softer. So, for instance, if we see that Donald Trump routinely has a lead of 5 points over Kamala Harris, this pollster routinely publishes results of a 1 point lead. Okay. And then, most importantly, Donald Trump wins by 5 points. That's the important thing here. Okay. Or if there's a generic ballot and Democrats have, we're going to do a reverse example here. Democrats have a lead of 8 points on the generic ballot. Right. But this pollster is routinely publishing Democrat +1, Democrat +2, and then Democrats win by 7, 8 points nationally in the House vote. They would get the winner correct, but they are in the bearish tranche where they were consistently publishing results that were favorable, but they were softer levels of support. Also coupled with stronger support for opponents. All of this is measured against the consensus. And why do we do this? Because tranches ID both trends in bias and overall trends in public opinion. All right. All right, moving to 2. The bullish tranche is when, of course, there's a flip side of that. Let's say Trump wins the election by 1 point. This pollster has routinely also found that Trump was leading the election, but they were way out there, 5 to 8 point leads that just didn't materialize. And of course, it was against the consensus of other good polls, other credible polls with good track records that showed that Trump had a lead, but it was a marginal lead. Okay, for instance, coupled with weaker support for the opponent. So in other words, not only would they find Trump ahead, but maybe they found Harris at like 40 or 42% level of support, maybe 44% levels of support, when in fact she was going to get like 47 or 48. Again, measured against the consensus and to ID both same things. All right. All right. So just keep that in mind. We have bullish and bearish tranches, and they go both ways. It's not one party or the other. It's just that in today's American polling industry, and those who think they can poll America's politics, even though they're not American, which is often tough. Why don't I like to poll? And I have polled. You guys remember why I have polled Great Britain. Because I wanted to research for like an extended period of time. Those ridings, the histories of those ridings, who lives in those. I wanted to familiarize myself on an intimate level with the people, the British people who lived in each of these ridings. Because sometimes, not sometimes, every time, you need to know this stuff. Have an intimate knowledge of those people. So when you see something wrong, a great example of that is the New York Times. Let's call it green in Pennsylvania. When Nate Cohen seriously thought that Joe Biden was going to carry that and Beaver and other areas in Western Pennsylvania, we know Donald Trump was winning 60+% of the vote. It's like only somebody who's stuck in a cubicle in New York City and doesn't know the people of Western Pennsylvania would look at that data and not see something is wrong. That's why polling truly is part science and part art. How much of each part? I'll let my competitors figure that out. But it's the only way for you to know that something is wrong. You have to know who these people are. All right. So, yeah, it goes both ways. And that's the way we see it. So, yeah, let's just review it quick and then we'll talk about it. New Jersey is close. Here's another way for you to understand where I'm going. New Jersey was close. A lot closer than it ever should have been in 2024. And going forward, if Donald Trump was still the nominee or somebody like a Donald Trump was still the nominee, New Jersey could go Republican. It could. I hate to break everybody's bubble and chat. It's absolutely true. The demographics have been there. There's been no presence for Republican ground games or grassroots operations. No serious ones. So don't get mad at me if you're some friggin' Republican, woman who is super active in Sussex County. I get you people all the time in my emails like, up yours, I'm in the ground game. Okay, well, you're not doing a good job. What can I tell you? Maybe you have been active, but there's no serious infrastructure there. So please keep my emails dry. All right. I already got enough lists. I don't really need to be bombarded with crap like that every day, even though I am. New Jersey is a great example. Only if you know the people in New Jersey and you know the Garden State in and out could you understand why Donald Trump attracted 100,000 people in Wildwood and not dismiss it as a stunt. Because crowd sizes are not always indicative. You guys know that. Doesn't matter. I mean, I guess there's some gauge of enthusiasm, but like plenty of presidential candidates have gone on to win, even though they were not the ones with the huge crowd sizes. In fact, it was generally a rule of thumb when I was young and growing up that Democrats always had the crowds, but Republicans had the opinions. And Republican presidents had won 5 out of the last 6 presidential elections back then. There wasn't some huge ground up swelling for Richard Nixon. Although Nixon did have one of the funniest pins. I can't remember what it was. It was hilarious. And it was dirty, which was funny, but it was hilarious. About 72. So, yeah. Mark, first of all, Rasmussen was based in Asbury Park, New Jersey. If you know Ocean County and you know that area of Ocean County, you knew that those non-white communities were super Trumpy. That it was not normal for a Republican president to get that kind of level of support in areas like that. But it was real. And Mark knows that because he knows the area inside and out, backward and forward. You know why the Garden State was voting Democratic and what problem the Democrats had to maintain it as like a D plus 20 state. All right. So with that in mind, let's watch. All right. Here we go. Very quick, super fast, not long. Did I sign in or no? I did not sign in. You know what? Ooh, give me 1 second. I'd like to sign in. I just don't want everyone to see my password. I'd like to sign in so we could see the crosstabs here and look at the crosstabs real quick, just out of not curiosity. I know what they're going to say. I just want to show you a few things. And the only one thing, Mark, I would really suggest, and I really wish you guys would do this, is make your age demographics a little bit more detailed. All right, brother? I'm going to shoot you a text and probably bust your balls about that later. Look, it's Field of Greens. Promo code TPP. There's the strawberry lemonade. Woo woo. Your hair will feel better. Your skin will look nicer. All right. The Rasmussen Report's daily presidential tracking poll for Friday shows that 51% of likely U.S. voters approve of President Trump's job performance. 47% disapprove. The latest figure includes 35% who strongly approve of Trump and 38% who strongly disapprove. This gives them a presidential approval index rating of -3. We call it the intensity index. Those are cute shoes. I like them. See the blue suede looking ones? That's cool. They're like jean shoes. Now we'll wait. Is that it? Okay, so that's it. Let's look at the trend. Okay, we can see that Trump was down in Rasmussen's poll. He popped back up. If we look at the approval index, you can see that it has gone back and forth a little bit, but generally speaking, his strongly disapproval is lower than it. No, I said it right the first time. His strong disapproval is higher than his strong approval. Honestly, in modern politics, this is getting common. I told you, I think we were returning to the partisan nature of our electorate weeks ago where this started to happen, and we could see it pretty clearly. But it was a miracle to begin with that you could ever see something. We always had this. No, strongly approved was 40. I think we had a stronger, what we call intensity index. I'll have to look and check on that. I didn't think to do the research on it until, because of this. Yeah, I mean, you're talking about 1,500 likely voters, 2.5% plus or minus. Okay. Full week's results. Come on. All right. This is the 6 through 10. 43% say the country's headed in the right direction. There you can see it's 50, basically 48 to 50 on the full week. What I was just reading before was the 3-day average. So trending in the right direction for Trump. You may notice, by the way, that they are finding pretty much what we are finding. All right. Which is that younger people are much more positive on the Trump administration than seniors. The Apple Cart has been overturned. It really is that simple. Not much of a gender divide, which I find to be interesting, but I'm not surprised. I think eventually, as it's being driven by non-white females. And interestingly enough, we're going to talk about that in a second more when we look at a clip. But Hispanics are among the highest approval for Donald Trump, with 57% saying that they approve of the job he's doing and only 42% disapproving. Among Black Americans, you can actually see it's rather high here. I'm curious to see whether or not we still have a very significant percentage of Black voters. Now, significant is 20% approval, 25% approval. They're above that. We were above that. I don't know that we still will be, and we'll have to see. Whites, 48% combined to 51% disapprove combined. And that's the tail of the tape here. Now, whites tend to underpoll in their support for Republicans in general, and minorities tend to overpoll sometimes in my look. Not everyone's like that. You go to the Marist poll or the Quinnipiac poll, and you're going to see just hot trash. That's just never going to happen. But that generally is some of the pollsters that are actually decent. In panel polling, it's sometimes a little bit difficult to weed that out. You got to make sure that age is nested properly with, well, I'm not going to give away stuff, but typically it's like age or geography that's doing it along with education. All right. 60% of conservatives strongly approve. You can see this. Now, liberals are back down to 15, which is still kind of high. What about moderates, which we talked about a lot the other day? Moderates have decisively turned against Trump, according to this poll, where it's 62% who disapprove, with 49 strongly disapproving, and only 37% who approve, and very, very few who say they have no opinion. I'm actually a little surprised that the moderate doesn't have the highest percentage of undecided. Typically, independents, moderates, groups like this have a higher percentage of those who are undecided. And you can see that here. 46% of people who have no party affiliation approve, 51% disapprove. All right. But again, really bring you back to the age thing and the race thing, which really, why? Because that's going to tell us about the future of this country. You know, Republicans are stupid, and when they look at numbers, they don't really know enough to look beyond that. Okay. Can I see the trends here? That's what I thought I was looking at before, but it's all right. It's not going to show you trend rate. Okay. Right track, wrong track. This is cool. So as you can see, it's been pretty stable. It's tough to imagine a president reversing direction of country and having a bottom fall out of them. For better or for worse, right or wrong, fair or unfair, presidents typically are the ones who get judged for a very negative direction of country, or they get the credit for it. So it's tough to imagine a world where you could poll 43% saying that the country's headed in the right direction and 51 who's saying it's headed in the wrong. I always find, by the way, and when we do this, make sure you check it out. I always find it very interesting when I look at the right track, wrong track, because in a lot of cases, you'll find Republicans saying, even during a Republican presidency, that the country is headed in the wrong direction. They want more dramatic change. Right? All right. Already 2:31. My God. So, because I got to get to, really do want to get to your questions and answer as much as I can here. I know, and I did see one, and I don't want to jump ahead. but I don't know that much about it. I if someone was gonna ask me this, because you guys do veer off topic a lot, but if somebody was gonna answer this, I did have an article that somebody shared, but that somebody isn't an impartial source, um, publicly and privately, to kind of catch me up to speed on what is going on with the whole Letitia James things. We can try to figure it out together. I'm not up on it. Honestly, we've been doing a lot with public opinion. So, and messaging. So I'm not terribly versed on the facts of what's going on there, but I will just say, if I circle back, say it later, I will just say this. I never I always told you guys, don't be surprised if the prosecutors that came after Trump actually turn out to be the most corrupt, all right, and are found later to having done something very, very wrong, because you have to have been corrupt to bring the charges against Trump that they did. Right? Gross distortions of the law, abuses of the prosecutorial authority. And for those of you who hate Donald Trump out there, I would just tell you, um, you lost the election in large part because you scared the shit out of people, and normal everyday people are going to care less about what you care about, which is just like the ends justify the means mentality. Go out and get whoever any way you can, because the destruction of them, your political opponents, all that matters. They don't see it that way. And if it was your family member, would you want a prosecutor to do that to you or your family? Answer is very clearly no, unless you're just so dishonest with yourself you can't even admit it anymore. All right. Okay. Cool. And we'll get to that. That's actually an election related question. That's good. But before we do, I want to get back to this idea of like these groups that are isolated. All right. Because even if Trump's approval rating is going to bob up and down, negative, positive, right? And it may never go positive again. I mean, we could poll Trump negative next week. Hopefully we do it by next week. We can't poll Easter Sunday anyways. It's not, I mean, you can, but I don't like to do it. I would have liked to already have polled. And if we did, we would have done some pretty cool stuff like we did last year about the resurrection. Do you believe in the resurrection? You call yourself a Christian? Because it's interesting to compare people who call themselves Christian with those who say they don't believe the resurrection was real, and vice versa. Those who say, oh, yeah, I believe Jesus, he was resurrected. And how many of them aren't actually Christian? Church has a big problem. Church, you got a problem. But in any event, we'll get back to this and we'll jump further ahead. But when we poll it, we may poll it where Trump is underwater and he may never return to positive territory again, or it's quite common in today's day and age, but we don't know yet. Or what we do know is that the long-term trend, if you could keep the status quo, which I'm not sure Republicans can, but if you can, the long-term trend for Democrats is very bad. Young people, emerging minorities who will soon not really be that significant of a minority are getting more Trumpy. I am not at all confident that Republicans are going to seize on that when Trump's gone. However, that is the trend now. And and Republicans can only beat themselves. So it's like, so seniors swing against me, big deal. Honestly, big deal. He's not up for a vote again. And I hate to say it, but among the worst of that age group for Trump, a not so small percentage of them will be dead by the time there's another presidential election. I'm not saying that to be cruel. It's just a reality. All right. But let's bring on Steve Kornacki. So I get this clip of Steve Kornacki talking about, as we're going through some of these numbers I wanted to talk about, because it's like with all of this, with Garcia, why are we not seeing Hispanics run like hell? I have to show you a clip because we talked about it the other day and some people were like, oh, it was a low blow, Rich. It was a low blow. I want to show you a clip, and man, I regret ever being a fan of Michael Strahan. I love the Giants. But there's this clip. It's like, he's not a sympathetic person. And I told you, people are not going to bleed their hearts for this story. And we're not seeing Hispanics. All we're seeing is the same group of whites who live in a bubble or want to live in a bubble. They're pretentious. They want to live in a bubble. It's just true. They're the only ones who seem to really be upset about all this. And so before we get into it, let's run this clip from Kornacki, and then we'll talk about what I was, the Sunday shows happened, and we said, we're going to do a Sunday show recap. And this is, the Monday beginning of the messaging war, right? And by the end of the week, I just don't see people seeing this guy as a sympathetic character. Well, now here we are. It's Friday. And people will start to tune out soon because they're going to enjoy their Easter Sunday. So Democrats had to land their blow when Chris Van Hollen decided he was going to take his ass to El Salvador. They didn't land a blow. It was not the correct hill to die on. And you're just not seeing it in the numbers. And frankly, even if you're negative a little bit or underwater a little bit, if you're doing better with younger voters and Hispanics particularly, but all non-whites, but particularly Hispanics for a very good reason. They're all over battleground states and they're fastest growing outside of Asians, who will take a while to catch up. Asians and Hispanics don't have abortions anywhere near the rates that white and black women do. Not to mention every other driver of their rising share of the population, which is ultimately going to be the electorate. I would rather be -5 and winning those groups than +5, losing them and doing it on the back of all white people. I'm sorry. I think of the world that way. It is not personal. It's math. Who would you rather be? I'd rather be the one who has the support of the people who will make up the electorate in the foreseeable future. You're trading short-term gains for long-term disaster if you don't. And by the way, you're really only trading the possibility of short-term gains and the almost certain catastrophe in the future. It doesn't make any sense. It may make you feel good for the time being, but it doesn't really make any sense. All right, so let's play the clip.
White women with at least a college degree, the only group of white voters that really kind of is on the left politically, aligned with progressive causes, democratic politics. Give you an example here. It's that DEI question.
Let me just stop him real quick before he continues this, okay? More specifically, white women with at least a college degree, and when he says that, he bachelor's degree or higher, an advanced degree. More specifically, that level of college-educated white woman who's not married. Okay? Keep that in mind because it's just true. It is much more significant when you look at unmarried versus married. And there's a reason for that, because white women who have college degrees have lower marriage rates and higher divorce rates, by the way.
Right here that we asked about in our poll. We had two big statements we read to voters. Basically, do you want to continue DEI programs or do you think they should be ended? And again, look at this divide here. White men, no degree, end it. White men with a degree, end it, they say. White women, no degree, end it, they say, by double digits. And then white women with a college degree, completely different by a nearly 40-point margin, they say, to continue DEI.
Okay, so there you go. In the short term, you may cobble together a coalition that has, why aren't I showing on the screen? You may cobble together a coalition, remove, what on earth is going on? Maybe you see it and it's just slow. Okay, good. You may cobble together a coalition that does have that. Whoops, shut up, Steve. With those white women and seniors together. I think we're probably going to enter a period where we already saw our education boom in America for whites. I think it'll continuously, it'll maintain where it is. I don't know that it's a given that we're going to see more educated groups among whites in the future. I don't. I think maybe now we're going to start to see that trend arrest. It already has, but like, will it reverse? I don't think so. But I do think that we're done seeing this booming share of the white electorate massively educated in a short amount of time, or overly educated in mass over a short amount of time. That's a better way to say it. All right. Also, there's another problem with that group. Even with those who are in college and are younger, they're still more Trumpy. So I was hypothesizing that basically the reason the 18 to 24 was more Trumpy than the 25 to 29 is because the 25 to 29 had more time to go through the system. And the more educated you are, the more you're going to be indoctrinated and adopt liberal views. But it may not be the case at all based on some of that Yale University polling. Somebody had asked us a detailed question about this, and I flat out told them this needed to be a national study. Not enough people are studying this in order to make any conclusions with a high degree of confidence. But whether or not you attended college is the status quo with survey design, and not whether or not you're attending college now. So is it fully that college thing, or was there some kind of an impact, a social impact, that they have lost their grip on the younger generation with? Maybe the TikTok got to them. Their TikTok is more influence on them than, what Beyonce says or what Democrats in their entertainment industry, celebrity friends say. They just don't give a shit anymore. Social media seems to be much more of an impact. And the issues are what mattered to them through the lens that they were looking at. And they decided that they came down on the right with those issues. What seems to be the case here with those white women specifically is a social thing. They themselves may not even have held those beliefs strongly until it became the latest fad. And because they were susceptible to that liberal grip on younger, educated people, it's today. And it's this stronghold that it has on that group that really is never loosened. Whereas these younger kids, they don't have it. All right. So it's a fragile coalition, is my point. It's fragile. It's also another nail in the coffin of the stupid, idiotic, simpleton line of arguments that Republicans should have elected somebody like a Nikki Haley or even a Ron DeSantis. Was an even bigger joke after his stance on immigration, because they could win back that woman. First of all, we're talking about a very, very small share of the electorate. Comparatively, we are. Folks, 54% tops of the electorate is women. Normally, it's closer to 42 or 52 or 53. In most battleground states, college educated is only around 35% of the electorate. Not college educated women, college educated, 4-year degree or higher. If you take that 35% and cut it into 52, or just cut it into 50, make your life easier. You're really obsessing over 17.5% of battleground state electorate? Nationally, could be even less. And among that group, there's a subgroup of very educated or overly educated with advanced degrees. In an election like 2020, getting that share up to 15, 17% was already ridiculously high. It's more like, 9 to 13. But let's call it 15. And let's say half of that are women, which it's a little bit more. But let's just say, let's give it 8.5%. Let's be generous. Let's give it more than 50%. Let's give it closer to its national representation. So let's say 8.5%. Well, hell. In 2024, fast forward, We talk about this stuff with the dynamics with the black vote. Is it going to be more female? Because if it is, that will probably limit Donald Trump's gains among black voters. Well, guess what? It really didn't. So you're obsessing over this huge, this is all Republicans think about. How do we win back these women? How do we go back to winning Delaware and Montgomery and Mitt Romney voter? I mean, it's never going to happen. Support transgenderism. Support unfettered access to abortion. Support DEI. Support CRT. These are radical people. They've been radicalized socially, and I can use that word correctly in this context because you just saw yourself. They're so outside of the fringe. It's literally the definition of radical. They are outside fringe. That's how fringe they are. That's the definition of radical. You are way out there on the spectrum. All right. Damn, and it's already 2:47. You got to be kidding me. So far, though, there isn't that many questions, so it's not that big of a deal. But my point is, it's just not going to happen. So there always had to be another path forward for Republicans, and that path would take it. That path, which we argued was the smarter path for them to take, was the one that also made the most use out of the changes in the Electoral College. We had a little thing called the census, folks. From 2020 to 2024, it got easier for a Republican candidate to win the presidency. All they have to do is hold the Sun Belt states and win one of the big three. Everyone thought Wisconsin was the one, and that's it. They could win now. They don't need to run the table on other ones. There can be little combinations of losing Nevada and carrying this one or whatever it may be. You can swap up and do a little bit of a puzzle with the math, or a little bit of a Jenga act with the math. But for the most part, it won't fall down if you hold most of the if you hold all of the Sun Belt and they had a Rust Belt, it's done. Democrats lose. But honestly, they shouldn't be dooming if they hear this right now, because this moving forward requires the Republican Party to really turn into the party of Trump, wholeheartedly, open-armed, embraced. And that isn't happening right now. The people have, the voter has, but the party, especially in the Senate, I don't know. I don't see it. I just don't. All right. Let's get to some of your questions at 2:49 here. There was something else I did want to show you. Did I get rid of the Econo Day thing? Because we missed it yesterday and we briefly went over it on locals. Let me get it real quick. Be careful. So the Philly Fed Manufacturing Index was not good. Fair to say, not good. But jobless claims fell considerably, or they fell to a significant point. All right, around the 200 mark, as long as you don't get to 300, really, is the sign of a healthy labor market. If you're also seeing rising wages, decent labor force, hopefully rising labor force participation, and employment that is still low, not because people are leaving the labor force, but actually potentially, which we've seen, an increase in the labor force. And yet, because the methodology with the BLS is a little bit of a gimmick. You have a lot of people leave the search for a job that month, unemployment could fall. If unemployment is falling, but labor force participation is rising, and you have jobless claims at or around 200K, it's a sign of getting healthier or a healthy labor market. So hopefully this continues, but we'll see. All right, let me just pop it up there. I'll fish some of your questions out. Crew, I'm going to put yours up on the thing, but I did have another clip I did want to play, and I know, bear with me, because it's honestly something I think we should watch, because it's I'm not saying I'm like patting myself on the shoulder or anything, but we told you this is not really the best hill to die on earlier in the week for Democrats. And I think we saw some of that again today or earlier this morning, where it just looks really, really bad. All right, so there you can see the jobless claims 215 they came in. The forecast range was a low of 218 to a high of 230. The consensus was on the higher end of the forecast range at 225, and last month was 223, which was revised up 1,000 to 224. So coming in at 215, nice, solid. We'll see what the revision is, but not a bad, not bad at all. All right, we'll see if that holds, but not bad. That's a good number. We just weren't on yesterday to really go over it, so we didn't. Okay, let me pop this one up, and then we will get to the first question. Okay, but first, look, Kilmar Garcia is not a sympathetic character. We showed from the Department of Homeland Security, like exhibit whatever, which was basically a protection order issued against his wife because he put his hands on her. She joins Michael Strahan in this weird segment on Good Morning America this morning. And it was odd. Strahan he's such a tool. I'm sorry. Mike, you're a tool. You are such a tool. It's really sad to watch it happen because very smart guy, very industrious, right? Somebody you may want your kids to look up to, but boy, not if you want your kids to toe a line because they want favorable treatment and they betray their own values when they do it. And unfortunately, that's Michael Strahan. But let's go. So this is, in case you didn't catch on, this is Garcia's wife. Check it out.
I have to ask it. You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
Husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay. And you know, I'm not going to push on that.
Why not? Why not? Why aren't you going to push on that? I want to watch it again. And I want you to look at her response. And I want to tell you what I want to ask you, not tell you. I really want to ask you how honest of a broker you think this woman is.
I have to ask it. You
Look at her
did take out a
facial
temporary order of
expressions.
protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
Husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay.
All right. So she's clearly coached. Stay to the line here. My husband is alive. That's all I can say. But she looks aggravated that she's even asked this question. And obviously, let's get real. I mean, is it a stretch for us to posit or speculate that she is trying to milk this cow? Is it wrong? Does it look like, and you really should watch the whole interview. I don't have time to show it to you, but does it look like to you that this is a woman who really gives two shits about what's going on here outside of what maybe it can mean for her? Maybe it could be life-changing in some way. I don't know. But if you watch it, it did not strike me as the most sympathetic character. She did not. And her attitude, she's doing a very good job of hiding, but it pops out. And it gives you the impression that this is more than I'm upset because my husband was wrongfully removed from the country. This is like something else. And you know, birds of a feather flock together, folks. Like, why on earth, do you start to wonder, like, what kind of, I'm sorry, I'm just going to say it. You start to wonder what kind of a family this is, right? And you start to realize maybe what DHS and the Department of Homeland Security is saying is 100% true. 100% true. I mean, you tell me if there's a certain I mean, somebody bail me out here. You know what I'm saying? No way, Ryan. Okay, you stop me in my tracks. I'm gonna go look. But you know what I'm saying here. This is not Susie Homemaker, okay? This is not Susie Homemaker. All right. Yeah. It looks like he's having a great time down there. He's in a gulag. You want to see the gulag he's in? You guys want to see the gulag? This isn't what they were talking about, but I found it when I looked it up. And then I promise I'll get to I'll get to it. I got to stop this and I got to show. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Look, this guy is suffering, man. Jeez. Look at that concentration camp. Holy shit. Guys, come on now. Where's your heart? We're coming up on the weekend of the resurrection. It's Good Friday. What is going on? Yeah, bizarre is the word. Guys, obviously she was being talked to in an earpiece. It's so obvious. I don't know how anyone could possibly not come to the conclusion someone is just speaking to her in an earpiece and telling her that's why she just repeated something that absolutely was irrelevant to his question. Absolutely irrelevant. All right. So, all right. I don't know where I'm not seeing what you're seeing, but apparently somebody was just saying that. Yeah. I mean, I just don't. I don't see it. Somebody was saying that there's something going on with Fauci or was about to go on with Fauci. I don't see it, guys. I don't know. We'll talk about it if and when that happens. But I will say this. You don't get a pardon because you didn't do anything. I'm sorry. Right? If you're Dr. Fauci, not other people. If you're a target of something like, political lawfare or something like that, that's different. But I think everybody was surprised when Dr. Fauci got a pardon. And it's like, for what? For what? Right? Other polling, which I was just seeing, I forgot to, I'm not gonna upload it, but other polling very clearly shows you're looking at like 6 in 10 who want Trump to do this. Like Garcia is not a sympathetic dude. His wife's not a sympathetic woman. Stay the course. Stay the course. Ooh, this is juicy. This is juicy. Did you guys read this? How the hell did I miss this the other day? Ooh, let's share this. All right, I'm going to pop this up and then we'll get to, ooh, what do we have here? Then be the domestic violence complaint against Kilmar Garcia. I told him to give me his card to pay. He got angry, started insulting me. I only put a few of gas. Once leaving there, he pulled out like crazy. I started recording because I was scared of the way he was driving and because our 1-year-old was in the back seat. In the recording, you can hear him yelling, insulting me, driving extreme fast. I am on 5/4/2021 at 1 o'clock. I was watching on my laptop and he yelled to turn it off. I told him I wasn't sleepy. He got angry, reached over, shut, and threw my laptop off onto the floor, a laptop on the floor, and the baby started to cry because he was putting pressure on him. My immediate, I'm sorry, a lot of spelled incorrectly. My immediate reaction was to push him off of us, and then he scratched me on my left eye. He punched and scratched me on my left eye, leaving me bleeding. That same day at 2 p.m., he came home and to say he was going out with a friend. I told him that I needed to go out to pick up some orders at BJ's. He got angry and started yelling again to the point that he ripped my shorts and shirt off, and I ran to the bathroom. He rammed behind me, grabbed me by my arm. I have marks on my left arm as well. He then left, came home at 12 p.m. I left my car parked in the neighborhood, and in the morning I asked him for the key and said he wasn't going to give it to and he said he wasn't going to give it to me because he had things to do, order Uber to leave with my kids because I was scared of him. Minutes later, he called that our car wasn't there anymore. At this point, I am afraid to be close to him. I have multiple photos and videos of how violent he can be and all the bruises he has left me. The left me the something with me. I can't tell. But very clearly, this is a violent man who puts his hands on women. And now that very woman is on Michael Strahan's show with an earpiece in her ear because Democrats are behind this. They hire law firms. They get them all dressed up. They do their makeup. They do their hair. They buy them clothes. They make them look presentable. They coach them. They put earpieces in their ear when they go on interviews and do media blitzes that they set up for them to make them look as sympathetic as possible. However, you can't mold Play-Doh into gold. You understand what I'm saying? Like, it's still just going to be Play-Doh. All right? 3:03 already. Let's get to your comments and questions. Okay. Oh, man. Where did all those come from? Locals, if I'd have known, I would have shut up earlier. Watching Big Tish squirm this whole week after she got caught in a paper trail of mortgage fraud worse than the man she tried to ruin has been so much fun, especially as a New Yorker. Her panic has been so tasty. Tish James, for those who don't know what's going on, is in trouble. It looks like she is in trouble. I did not get a chance to read all through of it, but it does appear like she may get a visit from the Federal Bureau of Investigation. All right. She is clearly engaged in mortgage fraud. I don't know if she's got to get out of jail free card for doing what she did to Donald Trump, which is going to amass you an IOU in the state of New York and Friends in Justice. And the reason I say that is because there was very clearly intermingling between Biden's personal team and these other offices, except for Fatty Willis over in Georgia. Fatty did what she wanted to do, apparently, when she was told to stand down for the time being, and she did not listen. She's a fame junkie, so she wanted to do it. And I don't know if she'll have a get out of jail free card or an IOU because she didn't listen. However, Tish listened. Alvin Bragg listened. They did this all wrong. There should have been one case brought forward first, which would have made everything else seem more credible. So once you brought the truly not credible case forward and then followed it with another case that wasn't credible, which is Fatty Willis, it just killed the whole thing. So Americans just saw it for what it was. But she probably has to get a jail free card. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know, crew. And I hope I am, because if you did something wrong, all of these people, you may notice the judge in the Trump case, he turned out to be a disgusting, dirty old man who can't keep his hands or eyes off of the 20-year-old women who walk into his gym. He also tried to completely abuse his authority as a judge to, let's just call it. I mean, you're not calling somebody to go hang out with them because you want to hang out with them, or take them to dinner because you want to take them to dinner. Ultimately, and ladies, I know this may be a surprise, but ultimately the guy's goal is to get in your pants. All right. I don't know if you were told this when you were younger. Maybe I need to tell you now, just so you don't have any mess ups, but their goal is really to get in your pants. So here we have an old ass, crusty old man judge from New York calling a 21-year-old divorcee who came before his court in a custody hearing and divorce hearing. All right, trying to use his influence as a judge to sleep with the woman, to have sex with the woman. All right, then you have Fannie Willis, who obviously admitted on the stand, and I can't believe she didn't. This is what I'm saying. Like, I don't see anybody being held accountable because Fannie Willis admitted to a felony on the stand. How she mixing campaign cash with her own personal cash. You cannot do what she did, what she described, and just having all this money laying around. Folks, the money goes into bank accounts that are compliant with Federal Election Commission regulations and federal laws. You cannot just decide I'm going to dip my fat ass hands into the bag of money that I raised for my whatever campaign. You can't do it. She admitted to it on the stand. And then, of course, we know the Judge Merchan. We know his deal. His daughter works for a firm that worked for Joe Biden's presidency, and then later Kamala Harris. All of these people. My point is, the Andrew Weissman's cheering them on. Jack Smith is a piece of shit. All right, we all know Jack Smith's record too. A gross prosecutorial misconduct. No, maybe slightly not as bad as Andrew Weissman, who ran the Russia hoax investigation. These are all people with black marks and blemishes, and it's very obvious that at some point, if somebody did any digging whatsoever, they were going to find out the corruption that they had in their skeletons in their closet. So Tish is just the latest. So I'm honestly not surprised. You have to be a crooked scumbag to do what they did to the law, the perversion of the law that they engaged in order to get Donald Trump out of the presidential race, which they failed at. So as much as, right? Yeah. AOC, pretending to be a white woman now, wants to run all over the place. She's not Jenny on the block anymore. Okay, Jenny from the block. She's like the desperate housewife of Orange County. Okay. As much as she runs around and says that shit, everyone knows it's bogus. And you would have to be able to be a bad person and a corrupt person to do what they did to Donald Trump. So not only does this not surprise me, I expected people to later find out that all of these people were dirty themselves. All right. This is a gross abuse of power, and it gross abuse of the laws. I mean, they're crooked. All right. Woo. Rich, did your pre-election bingo card include that Massachusetts would see the largest shift to the right in the country behind only New York and New Jersey? Probably my biggest surprise of the cycle. Also, while John Deaton ran about 5 points ahead of Trump for Senate, he ran behind him in the working class Hispanic areas, sometimes by as much as 15 points. Funny how consistent these macro trends are. It is. And actually, do you remember the primary? We went over the Republican primary in Massachusetts. Do you remember that night? We talked about Massachusetts, not that I was talking about Trump carrying it, but there were neighborhoods. You get outside of Cambridge, there were neighborhoods specifically, especially those Hispanic neighborhoods, where if that was real, what we were seeing in the polling, you would see that in those areas. So kind of was on my bingo card. Yeah. How much? I mean, to be that high within the top 5 areas. Look, I would have thought there were some other states, but New York and New Jersey to me was very obvious. California also. But Massachusetts, I guess the signs were there. I mean, you could see the votes he got in what places in the primary in Massachusetts. Remember, guys, it is a semi-open primary in the state of Massachusetts. All right. Andrew, Field of Greens has been a lifesaver. I told you. I had an industrial accident and was torn in half by a 3.5-ton excavator 5 years ago, costing me my arm, crushing my face, broke my neck, stroked out. I started incorporating Field of Greens in my daily protein shake post-workout, and everything is regrowing faster. It's just a simple fact that we don't get. I mean, I'm glad to hear it's working for you, and it's just a simple fact that we don't get what we need for vegetable intake a day. And who the hell wants to do that, especially dark greens, right? It's just a super easy way to do it, and I like it. I always like the lemon lime one, and I could drink any of them, but the strawberry lemonade is the jam, dude. Do you think it's realistic for Trump to splinter off his own party, to get out from under the thumb in the establishment Republicans, or is his movement simply not big enough to achieve that? It's not bold enough. I do think he could. It's just not bold enough. Ooh, we got the Tim Pool thing. We know it's a half-hour show. Was on his morning show a half hour ago. This is part of the question. So, whoa, sorry. Do we have any? Oh, it's the headline of it. All right, let's pop it up. Let me just answer that. I just don't think they're bold enough. I do think that they could do it, and I think ultimately it's possible that that is the end result for the Republican Party because they don't really have a constituency. We were just talking about the age issue for the Democratic Party. Well, it's also true that it's an issue for the Republican Party. It's like Trump is very different than them. And I'm starting to believe the best bet for Trump at this moment, or people who are like Trump, is to, in some way, shape, or fashion, force the Republican rhinos to either adopt the America First strategy and get their benefactors and their rent seekers to understand that, because ultimately the problem is special interest, or force them to become Democrats and deal with some short-term hurt in exchange for the party to purify itself of what Democrats don't have, which are traitors and backstabbers and people who are just straight phonies, posers, you know? All right, let's check this out because color me interested, okay? Color me interested. You got me. All right, so let's see what Tim Pool says here. Of course, it would be a lot easier if I went ahead and gave you audio.
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain of function research in the Wuhan Institute.
Do they fund Dr.
Virology.
Barrick?
We do not fund
Do you fund
gain.
Dr. Barrick's gain of function research?
A bombshell just dropped. The government
Let's
itself,
hear
the
it.
White House, has just published the true origins of COVID-19.
Well, we know this.
Whitehouse.gov/lab leak true origins. In fact, I think they have it like covid.gov or something like this, where they lay out the true origins of the COVID-19 virus. My friends, isn't it crazy? COVID was not last month. It was 5 years ago. 5 years. Children's lives were stunted. Businesses were destroyed. The largest transfer of wealth from the working class to the wealthy in history. And Dr. Fauci lied about everything.
Let's go.
We've got this report from the White House. Let's break down the White House report on the true origins. This is a
All right, is this going to change soon? I hope so, because so far I'm not hearing much of anything about him being, arrested. But he's got a pardon.
.gov, which is really, really crazy. I got to add it. It says,
I'm going to
the
go check this
proximal
out
origin of
because
SARS-CoV-2
is
publication, which was used repeatedly in public health by public health officials and the media to discredit the lab leak theory, was prompted by Dr. Fauci to push the preferred narrative that COVID-19 originated naturally. 1, the virus possesses a biological characteristic that is not found in nature.
Yes.
Here's where it gets crazy.
Yes.
What we knew about this.
All right, I'm just going to go ahead and pause that real quick because for those of you who have followed me a very long time, you remember that I obviously did have inside information on when emergency use authorization was filed, when it was going to be given, and also tracking data from Pfizer. I got it from somebody directly involved. That's how I knew about it. That's how I knew remdesivir was in development and remdesivir was working. It's not a surprise, and I told you then. Immediately, when they were told to deconstruct the COVID-19 virus in order to do something to use what's called the antigen method to create a vaccine, they deconstructed the virus and told them that the antigen method will not be possible because the vaccine was not anything. I mean, the virus was not anything that they had seen before, also has anything to deal with proteins, et cetera, et cetera. But the bottom line is, immediately, Pfizer concluded that this was not something that can be found in nature. The way it was constructed is man-made. It's by design. And they knew that immediately. I can also tell you that some of their findings were given to the Trump administration, who then disseminated it to the Washington Post and to Fox News, and neither outlet chose to run with it. They knew about this for a very long time. This is not new, but I guess it's just something we're allowed to talk about now, which is very unfortunate, because if you remember back then, you were called all sorts of names. You were a conspiracy theorist. You were, pushing fake news. You're going to cost people lives. You remember that? You're going to cost people. You're literally going to be responsible for killing people. This is what we were told. When in fact, Pfizer and the people who were in charge of deconstructing this vaccine immediately, not even a question, they immediately concluded that this virus was man-made.
Emails had been sent between prominent officials outright saying this had to have been gain-of-function research.
Yes.
If you're not familiar with what that is, it's when scientists try to gain functions of a virus. So you take a seemingly innocuous virus, they infect a bunch of bats. Then, if one bat starts developing lesions, they take that one bat, put it in with a bunch of healthy bats to spread that particular strain. So when they see a new emergent result from the virus, they keep selectively breeding the virus to gain functions of the virus. It's how they make bioweapons. They go on to say, data shows that all COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction into humans. This runs contrary to previous pandemics where there were multiple spillover events. Wuhan is home to China's foremost SARS research lab, which has a history of conducting gain-of-function research, gene altering, and organism supercharging at inadequate biosafety levels. Wuhan Institute of Virology researchers were sick with COVID-like symptoms in the fall of 2019, months before COVID-19 was discovered at the wet market. By nearly all measures of science.
Watch this fridge test.
Oh, come on. What are we doing here? Bottles of olive oil overnight.
There was evidence of a natural origin. It would have already surfaced, but it hasn't. Take a look at this. Now, a lot of people miss this.
All right. I mean, we can always go over this. Like, I'll go, and I want to bombard it with the Tim Pool show, guys, if you understand. All right. But like, I'll check it out. I'm curious. I don't know. I haven't heard it. After the show's over, while I'm doing what I'm doing, I'll listen to the rest of it, and it's time to see. But at the very least, Ryan, he lied under oath. Right? At the very least. Son of a Mitch. We'll look, if found, obviously we'll wind up talking about this a lot if what you're saying, or what Tim Pool claimed, happens. Okay. But so what he had said there in that clip is true. But again, I think the more important thing is to understand that they did know about this from the gate, guys. They knew about this from the gate. And you were just lied to. The whole country was lied to. The minute they tried to develop a vaccine for that thing, they knew immediately that it was not a man-made. It was not a naturally occurring virus. It was, in fact, man-made. All right. All right. Europe continues to act like unhinged idiots and prop up Zelensky. He just postponed elections again. What do you mean? Zelensky's pro-democracy, dude. Okay? He's got Western values, bro. At what point do the rest of the world wake up and acknowledge he's a dictator? He is a dictator. He's trying to save his own coke-sniffing skin. Ukrainian involvement in his assignations, seems sound more plausible as time goes on. I think we're going to find out too, son of a Mitch, that there's a dark role that the West has played in Ukraine. Ukraine is a dumping ground for things that are not legal for us to do in our borders. And I think that Vladimir Putin, although he's not a good guy here, there are no such things as good guys or bad guys in international relations. There are only nation states and rational actors. Okay. I am a realist through and through. Okay. So Zelensky is not a good guy. Putin is not a bad guy. Putin is not a good guy. Zelensky's not the bad guy. They're just both bad guys. It's Eastern Europe. And even if it wasn't, in the rest of the world, in Western Europe and the United States, where are the good guys there? There's like one. So, yeah, I mean, it's a how we talk about this stuff is a fiction. But again, If you were in the book club on Locals, which you should sign up, become a supporter on Locals. If you were in the book club, you would have read Myths of Empire with us with Jack Snyder, and you'd realize that the United States is a myth-believing country, and this concept and couching of terms and morality is a scam, and we want to believe it, unfortunately. So somebody like Zelensky will initially, at least initially, be a very sympathetic figure to people in America. Now, as time goes on, because Americans are inherently anti-war, as time goes on, Americans, not the American government, Americans are anti-war. As time goes on, they lose their sympathies from these people. He never deserved your sympathy. He was always a dictator, and he's a murderer. All right? I don't care. I don't care. It's not that I don't care. I don't want to hear about one side's dead kids. The same thing I tell the Jews all the time. While I personally do side with Israel and sympathize with Israel, I don't like dead kids on either side. All right? So there's a lot of things they have done wrong. But in the case of Ukraine, it's not even comparable. They're a satellite state of the West who agreed over about 2 decades ago that they would remain neutral, not seek NATO membership, and allow elections to transpire. Well, guess what? The only reason Zelensky was elected president in the first place is because the United States toppled their duly elected government because that government was too Russian friendly. Zelensky, when he was elected on the promise that he would just end it from both sides. He didn't. He continued to shell the Donbass and kill women and children. He's a fucking murderer. He is not a Western valued leader in any sense of the word. I wouldn't even be able to have this show in Ukraine. He would have shut me down already, and he would have sent his new age Nazis to do it. Wake up. Putin is only doing what we would do if Russia put a satellite state across from Niagara Falls. Same thing. Or in on the other side of the border in El Paso. On the other side of the Rio Grande. Give me a break. We'd flip our shit. We'd invade that country so quick, we'd bomb them back to the Stone Age. Get out of here. We almost started a nuclear war because the Soviet Union put a few missiles on an island 90 miles off the coast of Florida. We almost started a nuclear war. Ooh, hey, Rich, wanted to ask a fun question, which I'd love to end this with. Except for maybe we'll do a little thing about Easter as well, because I want to wish you guys a happy Easter. Wanted to end, let's put this one up. Wanted to ask a fun question. Who is your most favorite general and admiral from U.S. history? Ooh. Oh. That's such a good question. Oh my goodness, this is tough. Of course, you have Achaemenid, the admiral who repelled the Persians when, what was it, Xerxes the first or second? Whatever. When Xerxes, everyone hears about the Spartans and the 300, right? What they don't hear about is that the Battle of Salamis, which was Archimedes and his fleet of what appeared to be much more inferior ships. And it was a naval battle, and he was brilliant. By the way, there unfortunately is a second movie to the 300, which ended up being very graphic. They took a great deal of liberty. Xerxes' right-hand admiral is a woman. She's a very attractive woman. I always found that woman attractive. And there is a raunchy sex scene in it with him and this woman. So, they took the liberty of doing it, but the battle itself is a serious battle, one in which he displayed an incredible amount of confidence in naval warfare strategy, and he was successful against, by the way, a superior fleet. Not just the boats that were submitted, but the Greek boats actually moved a lot better on that water. He knew that, and he took advantage of his what he knew was his strengths in a sea of weaknesses, literally. There's him. Who else for admiral? Man, there's a lot of tough ones. Really tough. That's just a tough question. As far as general, like overall general, if I had to say, maybe I could find other examples of warfare where I thought the person had better strategy or something. But I think it's tough to find an example of somebody who pulled off a great feat. And that, of course, is also against the Persians, only it was against Darius. And I am speaking of Alexander. Alexander took what was essentially at the time 50,000 Macedonian Greeks and conquered the entire known world. But the battle at Gilgamesh was an incredible battle, and one nobody expected Alexander to win, except for maybe Alexander, who thought he was the son of a god, and maybe some of his most trusted generals, but not even all of them. Maybe Hephaestion had faith in him. Maybe Ptolemy did, but there were a lot who didn't. And he pulled off something amazing. Now, his army would later grow, of course, and he would incorporate people from all over the world. His downfall was a political downfall, not even a military or strategic one. The Macedonian Greeks, the native soldiers, his core of his army, was feeling like they were being slighted, and they were. All right. They were not looking to create a world that Alexander wanted to create, which was to shrink the world and to make an empire that was a highway that connected all people. And it's a glorious vision, a glorious dream, but the world was not ready for it. And he paid for that with his life eventually at a very young age. But man, could you imagine being 20 something barely and pulling off what he pulled off? Just remarkable. There are also I have a lot of favorite biblical generals. I love David, but there's not that much about David in the Bible, specifically about his tactical, him as a tactician. Moses, on the other hand, there was. And a lot of people don't think of the Exodus the way I think of it, I believe. And we can get into a bit of an end of an Easter conversation here with this. Moses was a general before he was someone who saw a burning bush. And when you read the Exodus, you should absolutely read it from a military perspective, or try to understand that what Moses was doing was military tactic. He was a military tactician, to include the breaking of the camp and where he put the torches in his camp. So when he broke up, cut and ran from Pharaoh, Pharaoh believed that his army was closer than it actually was. And what do I mean? There were torches. Guys are used to lead the way. It's always the front of the procession of the march. And instead, he had the Israelites put the torches in the rear of their march, and they walked in the dark. And Pharaoh believed that he had plenty of time to camp. And when he woke up and the sun rose, when his sun god rose in the sky, that sun god told him, "You've been tricked, bitch." And the Israelites were gone. So Moses also is just another phenomenal general. Man, this is such a good question. I honestly have an enormous amount of respect for Washington. It's easy to win. It's tough to lose. And I think what I appreciated so much about living in that area as a young kid,
after we left New York, and I would always go back and forth to New York. I had divorced parents, so I never left New York. But we did move very close to where the Battle of Monmouth occurred. Much needed battle. It really was just a draw at best, but they were getting their ass kicked from New York all the way down the whole time. And Washington, what I admire about him, which so many other generals can't do because they're like typical military men. It's like they got to swing the big D and make stupid decisions just to prove that they have a bigger one, and Washington understood the most important thing to do was hold together his army, to preserve his army and to wear them down. And he knew when to cut and run, and he knew when to stay and fight. And he was brilliant like that, even though he really did not have the training for this. Like, he just did it. I mean, he had the training as an officer, of course, but he was not widely experienced in the field in such matters. He was not. He did not have a resume like a resume like somebody like General Gage did. Forget about Cornwallis, Also, you got to give it to Napoleon. Napoleon was a brilliant battlefield tactician. You have to give it to him. But I really think I got to say Alexander. I do. Alexander did something different. He took his father's phalanx, and he knew that his father was genius with elongating those spears in the Greek phalanx. And his father never got a chance to go try that out against Darius's army. And Alex made that phalanx work, and also made his army more mobile. Plus, he was incredibly brave, and he did things that other kings did not. So even at Gilgamesh, you could see when you look and study how their armies were, where they were. Alexander led these assaults himself into the right flank of Darius's army, whereas Darius was in the center, and he was surrounded, by his men to protect him. That was not Alex's style. Alex's style was charge in with light cavalry, very quick. Your phalanx holds center and another position while your cavalry punches through one of the flanks, and he did different things, obviously. But he was able to defeat a far superior force by doing something nobody else did. And and I do admire his vision. I just think it was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Naive. Yeah, that's the word. And again, it cost him his life. He was very young when he died. He was almost certainly poisoned. Aphystium was probably poisoned first. Aphystium was his very good friend, and many people think lover, and he probably was. I think the movie probably demonstrates that relationship better. It's not, of course, that they don't like women. There just was no word. That's why the Netflix thing was so stupid, even though it was cool in every other respect. It was so stupid because there's no word for homosexual in ancient Greek. It doesn't exist. There was a love and a bond between two men, and while it wasn't considered it still was aberrant in some respect. It wasn't in the way that it was no gay, it's not in the way that we understand it. So, men expressed their love in weird ways in ancient Greek. It didn't mean Alexander was flat out gay and didn't like women. That's stupid. I mean, that's just not true. And he would, of course, go on to marry. Another thing that was huge. I mean, he married married a princess from one of the Eastern powers that he conquered, and Macedonians were pissed. They wanted a purebred Macedonian heir to his empire. Also, how he conquered Greece was just incredible, remarkable. I wish and I pray and I hope, if it's not underwater or destroyed, I hope we find Alexander's tomb. Little fun fact for people who don't know, Alexander was never referred to as Alexander the Great by his people in his day. It was only when Julius Caesar would also come after him and conquer Egypt during the era of Cleopatra, that when he saw his tomb and he went through his history in the scrolls of Alexandria, that is when Caesar said, this man was truly great. And from that point on, everyone referred to him as Alexander the Great because Caesar decreed. So it's cool. Man, it's tough. What a great question, Blaine. So tough. There's just so many. I could get through some modern people too who are just incredible tacticians, a born leader. First started out as lieutenant, then he turned into captain, of course, and then it was command, which didn't see any action. But Captain Winters in the 101st Airborne in World War II was an incredible natural-born tactician, but he's not a general, of course. Patton was amazing. I mean, this is what America needed. That's why Roosevelt let Patton get away with so much while he did. He knew that he needed him to beat Rommel. He knew it. So he let him get away with some of these otherwise less desirable tactics and treatment of soldiers, although I wouldn't have cared. I mean, and it would not, the type of soldier I was, it would not have bothered me. And I would have loved to have served them. There's somebody like a Patton, suck it up, bro. I mean, you're in the fucking army. You cannot, for people who don't know this, he slapped that soldier because shell shock, as they called it back then, is contagious. And maybe you've never seen it happen. And God, I pray that many of you haven't, or all of you haven't. But it's contagious. You cannot let that shit spread through your camp. So get over it, Buttercup. Ridiculous. You think everybody wasn't hurting? You think everybody's mind wasn't broken? You don't think everybody sits around wondering if that shell's going to be next? It just comes down another 15 feet, and instead of turning the freaking trees into toothpicks, it comes down and lands in the foxhole, and you're fucking vaporized off of planet Earth forever? You think that doesn't go through every soldier's mind? We don't have war like that anymore, but of course it did. Man, there's so many of them. God. But I can tell you my favorite biblical character is David. I very much relate with King David in flaws, in everything. I very much relate with him. He's a man. And I think what I like so much about it is, despite how flawed he may have been, God loved him. And I just obviously love the idea of that because I am not a perfect individual. Nobody is. But I have many of the same problems that David has. It's just something my wife is most certainly aware of. All right. And thank God she took a risk on me. I'm not sure I wouldn't have. I would have myself. I'm not stupid. Like, unfortunately, you don't ever, guys, don't ever do what somebody like a David did. The Fidelity Bank and Trust is a strict creditor. You make a deposit somewhere else and they close your account forever. Okay? It's not worth it. It's just not worth it. Don't be stupid. All right? You marry a woman you love and that's it. You made a vow. Stick to it. David could not. And ultimately he did something which is horrific, which is send Uriah to the front because he wanted Bathsheba, and he ordered his general to abandon him when the fighting was the worst, and he died. And it was his if not his most trusted right-hand man and military man, it was up there. And I actually think it was. I think Uriah was his most trusted right-hand man. So there we have it. I've noticed that The Chosen keeps popping up on Prime when I turn on Prime. Are we getting a new season of The Chosen, season 5? I don't know, but I'll tell you what, this weekend would be the perfect time to do it. Jonathan Rumi is an amazing Jesus. He's really something else. I mean, I always like to think myself in Jesus in the light that Jonathan Rumi portrays him. I do not like the old school Jesuses who were super like serious and they're like, staring off and unapproachable. I do not envision or do not see Jesus in that way. I think he was likely extremely funny and extremely approachable. And somebody that he's trying to make on the scene. So here's fingers crossed. I haven't heard. I don't even want to look it up and get my hopes up because I really am looking forward to that season. All right. Wow, it's 3:41. All right, well, kick rocks. Make sure everybody does have a safe, obviously, Easter Sunday. I don't know about you guys, but I'm looking forward to it a lot. I'm going to make my lamb, but also we're going to have an Easter egg hunt, of course, first in the morning at our house. Then we're going to go to the church, and we're going to do an Easter egg hunt at the church with the kids. Then we'll come down and have an Easter dinner. And I cannot wait. Can't wait. And I hope you have a blessed one yourselves. All right, with that in mind, I'm going to kick rocks. All right, and I will see you guys on Locals, none below. I'll do it for her again, just in the other room. Deuces, be good. Fidelity Bank and Trust. I heard it. I can't remember. I know it. I didn't make it up. I know I heard that from somewhere before. I'll get it. I'll figure it out. I will put the lamb recipe on Locals. I always do. All right. Give you guys some pictures. Feel free to do the same. Share it with us. We love foodie pictures. Happy Easter, everybody.